If you have a question that you want to ask me, you want to get in on the fun of a Q&A with Taeler Hendrix, here's what you do. And it's really, really cool, in my opinion. Not to, you know, put myself over or anything. What's really, really cool is if you go on over to my YouTube channel on one of the side links over here, youtube.com/Taeler Hendrix, you go ahead and hit the subscribe button, and then you scroll down on the videos to the latest QnA Wednesday video, hit the thumbs up button, and then comment below on that video with your question for your chance to be featured on not only my YouTube channel for QnA Wednesdays, but also this podcast, Talks with Taeler Hendrix, which airs every single Tuesday with russosbrand.com. So really, really fun. I love to find different ways to bring you guys in with pretty much everything that I do. Essentially, you know, the children's books, my blog, writing for Fightful.com, doing my podcast on Tuesdays, Talks with Taeler Hendrix, doing a brand new podcast with Vince Russo called The Brand Live with Vince and Taeler every Friday. So I've got so many different things going on, including cameos where we donate to charity with every single video, you know, just so much fun stuff. So today I had a huge, massive influx of people submitting their questions on my YouTube channel. So I took down a whole bunch of them, and then I was like, oh my gosh, there's so many here. Yikes. Like, I might as well just do a whole episode of Talks with Taeler Hendrix based around some of these questions today. And of course, do not worry, you will still have a Fun Fact Friday on my YouTube channel, just not on the podcast this week. And of course, on both my YouTube channel and this podcast today, you're going to have some motivation to carry you through your week. That's a mainstay. We got to put that in there, especially with how things are in society right now. It's a must. It is a must. Let's be honest, right? Okay, so without any further ado, Q&As with yours truly. Here we go. I do have to admit that I made the pretty irresponsible decision to write my notes today in green, thinking that it was going to be darker than the blue. I was wrong. I was wrong. So I'm going to be doing this like a granny quite a bit because it is just so light. And I'm like, oh, now I have to do a whole episode of this podcast with like, I can't see. Epic fail. Okay, the first one, someone asked me, what wrestling schools would I possibly recommend? Okay. As you guys know, I am a huge believer in not going to just any Joe Schmo school just because it's local. Get out of your comfort zone. Sometimes, maybe if you're lucky, the best school is in your area. That would be awesome. But that's, you know, usually the exception, not the rule. A lot of times you have to position yourself for the best possible avenue to success, whatever that looks like for you, right? So that might mean picking up your shizit and going to where you're going to get the best possible result, which means the best training for your money, the best connections, and so forth. Like, there's only so many bumps on your bump card, and you only have so much time in the business, so why waste that time? You know what I mean? Especially because in the beginning of your career, people are always like, oh, quantity over quality, quantity over quality. You got to get your time in. You got to pay your dues, right? But then at a certain point in your career, you go, oh, wow, you know, everything kind of hurts. Where's the longevity in this? I think I need to flip that script and then do quality instead of quantity, right? And so I think part of that comes with your choice of school, because a lot of times you could be spending so much money and so much time in your career learning what not to do. You don't necessarily understand that just because you're learning what not to do doesn't mean you're learning what to do. And not all schools are created equal, okay? So go to a school with a trainer that has a reputation of excellence, like they've produced people. Go to a school that has a training record with getting people signed, or, you know, has connections to the places that you want to go. Don't be fooled by the schools that are like, oh, we trained so-and-so. It's like, a lot of times they just did shows with you. That doesn't mean you trained that person. So don't fall for that stuff. Do your research. Wrestling schools that I would recommend: if you're on the West Coast, Santino Bros in Southern California. If you are in the Midwest in any capacity, Ohio Valley Wrestling, go and train with Al Snow. You cannot find a better resource. If you are also out that way, Rip Rogers has his own school. Now, that is another story that we will get into, but, you know, be prepared. Like, that's Rip Rogers' school. So if you cannot handle his crassness and whatnot, then don't go. Okay, don't be a little bee about it, okay? There was something very, very interesting that I'm going to say real quick. Like, when I was in TNA developmental, after we got signed, at first we were still in Rip Rogers' class, which was awesome, and then all of a sudden we got pulled out of it, and then we couldn't go to his classes anymore, and people thought that was because of me, right? And it wasn't, okay? A different girl was there, and he called her a big SLUT, and I was used to that sort of language. So to me, it was just funny. You know, I was desensitized to it. I mean, when you train with Rip Rogers, you either are a little bee or, you know, you get desensitized real quick and then it's funny. Even if it's not really appropriate, like you just laugh it off, right? It's wrestling. Well, this person, this woman did not think it was funny, and she went to management for TV, and that's around the time that we got pulled out of his class. And that wasn't even me, but because I was, you know, one of the main people always there, people thought it was me, and it was not me. I still wanted to train with Rip Rogers. Like, Rip Rogers was a lot of the reasons why we got signed. It was through his teachings. So it really didn't make any sense. Anyway, that's just a side story. If you're in Canada, there are two schools with a reputation for excellence in getting people the type of skills that they need. One is Lance Storm School, which speaks for itself, and the other one is Santino Morella's school. So two different parts of Canada. We kind of split that in half there. You also, in the southeast, roughly, or down south, southern Midwest area, depending on which way you want to look at it, is Tom Pritchard School. Highly recommend it. The Rock, Kurt Angle, Roman Reigns, speaks for itself. And then, of course, if you are out in Mexico, I highly recommend, well, obviously AAA and CMLL are like the ones, but I also recommend CMLL. Dip your feet in, learn that tradition. They've been around for so long, so I highly recommend that. Okay, another person asked me, what is something you do that you think not a lot of others like you do? Okay, well, that's kind of a vague question. What do you mean that aren't like me? Like, I don't know. But the first thing that came to mind is I read. I'm a person that is always trying to constantly learn new things and make myself a more formidable, successful, educated, formidable person. Okay, I'm not sure if I said that word twice because I'm just kind of in my element here. So I would say that I try to surround myself with people that are more successful than me so I can learn from them and gain skills that I perhaps did not have before. And, you know, success rubs off and education and things like that. So I am constantly always reading on various different kinds of topics. I probably read about 90-ish, give or take, books a year, which I don't think a lot of people do. I actually would love that to be almost double. However, I have bouts of dyslexia and memory retention problems when it comes to reading. I was a very slow reader as a child. I actually was behind the reading curve for the grade for several years in a row. It took a lot of working at home with my mom and things like that to get me to not jumble certain letters and things like that, and confuse certain letters that look similar and stuff. So even still as an adult, I'm very much a slow reader, and in times of stress I still have bouts with dyslexia. So I would love that to be like closer to 180 books a year, because then I could learn so much more. But for now, I am really proud to say that I read about 90 educational books a year. Another person asked me, what are my thoughts on trios titles, and they reference AEW. I am personally not a fan of trios titles. I am a huge fan of tag team wrestling. That's my lifeblood, guys. Like, I always wanted to be, you know, like a really awesome tag team, like a sister cousin sort of tag team or whatever, just something really, really cool, right? I was always pushing. I tried so hard to have like a tag team with Jessica Havoc. I tried so hard to have a tag team with Cherry Alley. I always want to call her Cherry Bomb. I did get to tag briefly with Chelsea Green. We were the QOC tag team champions. I wanted to tag a lot more with Alicia Edwards, but that didn't work out. Yeah, I love tag team wrestling. I would have loved it if Mandy Leon's and our storyline at Ring of Honor for Women of Honor, I would have loved for that to turn into me like warping her into my demented sort of villain, you know, embrace your inner villain and Taeler Hendrix sort of vibe, and like force her to become everything that she didn't want to be, and she in essence becomes me. Like, I thought that would have been such a cool like way to round out that storyline, you know. And you saw shades of my creativity with that, where, you know, she picks up the chairs and then you see me like begging, and I'm putting my shoulder under the ropes because I'm like hurt or whatever, and then she goes and she puts the chair down, and that's when right in the stomach, and I take advantage of that weakness of doing the right thing. To me, that would have been such a great segue to slowly lead into her becoming demented like me and stuff, and just like that, the mannerisms. And then we become a tag team. I would have loved that. Like, I still to this day would. I think that would have been such a great way to continue that storyline. And anyways, so yeah, I am not the biggest fan of trios titles. I think it's a waste in my opinion. I would rather see more depth and dimension in your tag team divisions as opposed to a trios title. Honestly, I hate the fact that we're so quick to break up actual legitimate tag teams in wrestling these days. And then it really leaves the tag team divisions wanting, you know what I'm saying? Like, they lose the potential that is there. So for me, I would rather not have trios at all, because there's even more. If you have a trio team, right? Like, think about like the Dudley Boys when you had Bubba Ray, Devon, and Spike, right? There's so many different working elements that can be done with a trio as a tag team, you know. But what happens if, you know, you have a trios and then one's hurt? Like, it's silly. I don't know. Not a big fan. But to each their own, I guess. But to me, it's a waste. I would rather have more people in the tag team divisions. And instead of them doing a trios title, I would have rather had a women's tag team titles, because at the time there was great potential for women's tag team titles. I mean, I would have loved to have seen, let's see, Britt Baker and Jamie Hayter. I would have liked to have seen Ty Conti and Anna Jay together as a tag team. I would have liked to have seen, let's see, Killer Kelly with Layla Hirsch together as a tag team. I would have really liked to have seen more with Big Swole and Nicole Savoy together. I would have really have liked to have seen, let's see, you know, you could have done more with Allie and Penelope Ford. There was just so much that could have been done. Okay, another person asked me, have I ever met Danhausen? Yes, I have. I met Danhausen when he was super, super uber green. He was still starting out, and we were in the exact same carpool together to a show in Canada, which ended up me having to take a ride in an ambulance because somebody else got hurt, really, like, subdural hematoma hurt. And he was actually, Danhausen was actually the driver for that carpool. I think it might have been his car. So yeah, I met Danhausen really early on. So it's kind of cool to see that, you know, he's still with his wife and kind of just doing his own shtick. I don't think he's doing now what he ever thought back then that he would be doing. So that's pretty cool for him. Another person asked me, what are my thoughts on a Spartacus sequel for Stars? I think that's awesome. I low-key auditioned for some stuff for, you know, a potential Spartacus project. And I mean, I took Latin for like 6 years. So, I mean, it kind of just writes itself. But yeah, I think a lot of people don't know that. On the DL, while I was still wrestling, I actually did some auditions. What are my thoughts on WoW? At first, I thought they were talking about Maria Kanellis' promotion, but then I realized, no, Taylor, they mean Women of Wrestling. Go for it. I'm all for Women of Wrestling. I think it'll be very, very interesting to see what they do in comparison to past versions of Women of Wrestling. Like, I'm all for it. I don't understand why they're not using Santana more, because, I mean, she was kind of the lifeblood of that prior regime's OW. So that would be really, really cool. And I mean, she's just an all-around Americana. So I would love to see that. I love parts of Women of Wrestling because it kind of reminds me of old school wrestling with the characters and the style and stuff. I think there's a lot of potential there. I'm totally all for it. Another person asked me if I could go back in time to the past, what, if anything, would I change if I went back in time? This is such a loaded question. We have actually talked a lot about this on this podcast when we've had guests and just in general for motivation and retrospection and stuff like that. It's very easy to be like, oh, I would go back and change this, this, and this, this opportunity I never should have taken, this person I never should have allowed into my life, so forth and so on, whatever, you know. But at the end of the day, if you go back and change something, right, there's no guarantee that you end up the same person. And I have, like, my bangs are like stuck in my eyelashes. Here we go. I fought really, really hard to be the person I am right now, today, talking on this episode of Talks with Taeler Hendrix. Nobody thought I would make it this far. Nobody wanted to see me, you know, succeed. And when people think that they can't get or receive something from you for themselves, their loyalty moves on to other people because they were never loyal to you. They were loyal to their need of you. And that's why you hear people like Eric Bischoff, Vince Russo, and other people say that people stop calling. because it's true. They were never loyal to you, for you, at the base of the foundation of who you are. They were loyal to their need of you. You know, it's really, really funny because when I was in Impact, for example, there were tons of people in my DMs wanting to talk to me, be friends with me, yada, yada, yada. Those same people were not friends with me or wanting to talk to me anymore after my release, right? Same thing for Ring of Honor, or same thing when I'm coming in and out of WWE, you know? And that's the thing about that, is you have to understand that those types of things also apply to you. If you go back and change something that happened in your life, whether justified or not, there's no guaranteeing you're going to be the same person you are, you know? And for me, I fought so hard to be me and to accomplish everything that I have done up to this point and all the things that I'm on my way to accomplishing. And I'm becoming so proud of who I am as a person without sacrificing my integrity, that I can look in the mirror now and subliminally look at the little girl that I used to be and be like, fist bump, pound it, like, we're doing some epic shizit, girl, we got this. And I am so proud of you, and you can't do epic shizit with basic people. You know, a few years ago, I would not have been able to say that because I was so caught up in everything else of what everyone was trying to make me out to be, what people needed me to be for their own stories, and, you know, just all of this toxicity, this negativity that didn't serve me. And now when those very same people talk about me, they're talking about an outdated version of me that doesn't exist anymore, or perhaps never even existed to begin with. It's just who they need me to be for their own story, and that's okay. So in a roundabout way, I'm saying no, I wouldn't go back and change anything, as tragic as a lot of things were, and because I learned so much about how strong I am as a person and how many times I was willing to get back up after being punched so hard and kicked in the dirt, feeling like I could never get up again. And somehow I found a way to get up and show up every single time. If I change something and make things easier for myself, there's no telling who I would be today. You know, you don't experience growth as a person when everything is easy. You know, you experience and you learn how strong and resilient you are as a person when things are hard, when things are challenging, when you have to overcome adversity and obstacles and challenges, you know. Would I ever want a rematch with Mandy Leon or anyone else? Yeah, I totally welcome a rematch with her. Like I was just saying before, like, I think there's so much we could have done with that storyline, going forward. I would love a rematch with Santana. I would love to, there's a lot of girls that I would work with again. I think that there's a lot of stuff that I could do for and with Alicia Edwards that would really be beneficial for both of us. Like I already have like 3 different stories in my head that I could write for her for TV, like so easily. And I know that you guys would be buying it. Like I just know, I know it in my bones. There's a lot of women. Now on the flip side of this, there's a lot of women that I always wanted to wrestle with that I never got the opportunity to. So if you guys want to know about that, next QnA Wednesday, write it down in the comments, check it out. Another person asked me, what are my thoughts on WWE 2K23? I don't know. I have not played WWE games in a while. So why don't you guys tell me your thoughts on it? Yeah, I love video games, but I am not good at them. They do not love me back. It takes me a very long time to get through a lot of things. Like if I suck at Duck Hunt, like that's the funny thing. I can shoot a real gun, I can shoot a BB gun, I can do all those things. But like when it comes to like playing Duck Hunt, suck at it. Like how does that happen? Like how does that happen? I don't know. Another person asked me, what are some more trends that you absolutely hate? Oh, okay. So the last time that they asked me this question, I said, girls unnecessarily filming men at the gym and targeting men at the gym, cannot stand it. Like, look what you're wearing, and then you expect people not to notice. That's like me going like this right now, okay? Taking green ink, putting it all over my forehead, and then going, why are you staring? Well, gee, why is there green ink all over my forehead? Like, common sense, ladies. Common sense. The other thing that I said last week that I could not stand is people giving financial advice that is so stupid. And then people believe it because these people act so confident in what they're saying. And this just goes to show how stupid social media is. And anybody can say anything to a certain extent unless you think differently. And then all of a sudden, you know, you get all the kinds of hate coming in. And it was in regards to fractional investing. I do not understand why you would want to own 1/8 of one share of Tesla. Instead of, why don't you purchase other stocks that you can actually afford that pay dividends, collect all those dividends with a compound interest until you can't afford one full share of Tesla. Like, why would I want to own 1/8 of one share of anything? Like, we're not talking about apartment buildings here. We're talking about one share from one company and you own 1/8 of it. Like, you're so dumb, so dumb. So I think this week, some trends that I really cannot stand. People trying to solve racism with racism. Makes no sense. No sense at all whatsoever. That trend needs to stop. Let me see. Another trend that drives me crazy. Oh my gosh. All the girls right now are doing the same gear. Like, different colors, different little nuances, but it's like the same gear. All these girls in wrestling have on these like garters on their gear. Oh, so many of them. Like, go on Instagram right now, right? Go look at all the female wrestlers that you know and or follow and count how many of them have garters on their gear. I'll wait. I really won't, but I have too much to do. But like, seriously, ladies, just because something's a trend doesn't mean you have to hop on it. Like, if you blend in, how do you stand out? Okay. So that's 2 more. We can keep doing that every week. If you guys want, let me know. We can do like a whole Peter Griffin grinds my gears segment if you want. Like, I'm down for it. Okay, let me see here. Another person asked me, what can you do to get a crush to like you? I don't really, without knowing particular circumstances, I cannot, say one way or the other. But I think if you have to try too hard to prove yourself to someone else to get their validation to like you back, they might not be the person for you. So just focus on you. Focus on bettering yourself. Focus on creating the life that you don't need a vacation from. Focus on creating avenues to all the goals and things that you've ever wanted to achieve in life, and eventually somebody is going to notice you the way you deserve. And like what we said last week, your vibe attracts your tribe, okay? And I think sometimes men have to work so hard to get the approval of women, and women don't really have to work that hard to in the reverse, I guess I would say. And I think that's wrong. You have women running rampant and unchecked today. And it's really, really sad, because if they had the experience of being a man for 1 year, like a convincible man, like they could dress like a man, sound like a man, look like a man, and experience the life of being a man in today's society, they would never take for granted ever again being a woman. And that is my personal opinion. And I actually know this to be a fact as well, because there was a staunch feminist that actually did this. And at the end of it, she actually, well, you can go and research that for yourself, okay? Because I don't want to be canceled. But her findings were astounding. Astounding. She had a completely different perspective after that experience. And I think, if you want men to respect you, then you need to, which a man should, don't get me wrong, but if you want a man to respect you, then you also need to put out there something that is worth respecting, okay? Men and women are different for a reason. And so for you, if somebody that you have a crush on is not liking you, and I don't know how long this has been going on, so I can't say with certainty, but if you're bending over backwards, jumping through all these hoops, if you're in the friend zone, or you think you're not even noticed, just move on. Focus on you. Focus on you. It's amazing the things that come into your life when you're just busy building. Build for yourself, and then the right people will somehow find their way in. And that's when you're more in control of the situation. You got to put yourself out there, free with your authenticity, and realize that some people are not meant to be in your life forever. And some people should never be in your life at all. Sometimes you end up around the same situations and similar people is because there's a lesson you have not learned. So you're subconsciously putting yourself back in that position, back around those same kinds of people over and over and over. So if this person is not noticing you, they're not liking you, move on. Do you. Focus on you. work on you and to just pay it no mind anymore. And at the same time, also ask yourself if this crush is more than a crush or if this is temporary, because a lot of crushes are actually temporary, but you end up putting yourself in permanent situations based on a temporary feeling. So there's a lot going on there. I think you would have to be a little more specific. Advice to my younger self. Oh my goodness, there is so much. Number one, I would tell my I'm actually wanting to write a book about this, notes to my younger self. I would tell myself, do not allow the likes and opinions of others to dictate how you think about yourself and how you feel about yourself. I would also tell myself to not give up on my dreams just because other people can't envision those dreams, because they're not their dreams, they're mine. So it's not for them to understand. I would also tell myself, don't go into relationships, like work on you first before you put yourself into relationships with others, because it's not fair to you and it's not fair to them. And this is how generational curses get passed down, is because people don't spend that time working on themselves and fixing their own shizit, both mentally and emotionally and physically and spiritually and everything else. They just keep passing the buck. And that's not fair to other people, and it's not fair to yourself. I would also say that not all opportunities should be accepted. Not all bridges should be built, and that's metaphorically speaking. And that's okay. It has nothing to do with you, and other people's opinions of you are none of your business, just like Betty Davis always says. And always let your moral compass be your guide, because your dreams should never come at the cost of your integrity. That's too high a price to pay. And things are not always as they appear. So do not make permanent decisions based on temporary feelings. And like Ted Lasso says, be a goldfish. 3-second memory, be a goldfish. There's so much more I would say to myself, but those are a lot of the things that I would say to myself. And I know that if I had someone like me in my corner, things would have been so much different for me. So I'm so thankful for the people that I have in my corner now, because I didn't have them back then, and I've learned so much from them, and I am my most confident, authentic self. And that is something I will never ever sacrifice or take for granted. And I hope that for all of you as well. I do have to say that was one of the main driving factors of my podcast. Let me see here. Someone said, with the reemergence and popularity of stardom, is that something I'd ever consider? Heck yeah! Heck yeah! I love all the ladies out in Japan. Like, they kick ass, and I love stardom. I think, you know, what Sasha Banks is doing is really, really cool. It was unexpected. So yeah, love them. Heck yeah! Like, why not? Why not? Advice for men. Okay, this could be a loaded question that maybe some women will be angry at me for, but I firmly believe in this. Guys, do not let this society convince you that your masculinity is toxic. Okay, a country is only as strong as its defense, and that includes masculine men. Okay, you know, there's a difference between being confident and being arrogant. Confident is not toxic. Arrogant is a little toxic, okay? But do not let all of these women and all of these outlets and all of these different propagandas going on right now convince you that you're toxic. You are not toxic. You in your natural masculine form is amazing. You are fearfully and wonderfully made, okay? Do not settle for less than what your boundaries offer and suggest for you. And focus on you instead of focusing on finding Mrs. Right, you know, and focus on building. You know, it is harder to be a man. You know, there is so much expected of men in today's society. And as a man, you need to hold other men accountable for their bad behavior. Because at the end of the day, women think that women can, you know, correct men, but a lot of men don't take it seriously. I see this a lot in wrestling. You know, there's that quote, the only thing for evil to triumph is that good men do nothing. And that's true. It is very, very true. So focus on building your life before you know, try to settle down. And remember that a woman's looks are temporary, and it's her personality, her beliefs, and her attitude that are going to be raising your children, not her looks. So don't just choose on looks, also choose on substance, because that's what you're going to be coming home to, and that's what's going to be raising your children. And at the end of the day, if you are in a position where you're thinking of, you know, should I engage in a physical interaction with this woman, ask yourself, and this goes for women too, but I think they also ask me advice for women as well, so I'll get to that in a minute. So if you're a man and you're thinking about engaging in a physical interaction with a woman or whatever, ask yourself, would I be comfortable for the next 18 years being tied to this person? Would I be comfortable raising a mini version of this person? And if the answer is no, don't do it. There's so much more peace of mind in abstinence than the hookup culture, which is making people more and more and more depressed, even though we're in the wealthiest society full of opportunity that there's ever been in the history of this country. So that's a lot of what I would say. You know, get your butt up, go to the gym, show up early. If you're on time, you're late. Do not sacrifice your morals and values for a pretty face. A pretty face is fleeting. Nothing good happens after 2 a.m. Get your butt home, go to bed, get up early, do the same thing all over again. Hustle for yourself, work on yourself, focus on yourself, show up for yourself, and eventually you're going to find somebody that appreciates that. Don't sacrifice and don't make yourself somehow feel less than, because a lot of times you'll end up in a position where you're coming home to a battle instead of solace, and you deserve solace when you come home, not a battle. Advice for women. Ladies, the world does not rise and fall. The sun does not shine and set with you. Okay? You were born just like everybody else. That's not special. What's special is what you choose to do with that, okay? Don't just focus on a pretty face and the latest body trend, okay? That doesn't make you special. What makes you special is your attitude, how you carry yourself, your gumption as a human being, your mode of communication. All of that stuff matters so much more than, you know, the latest lip injections or twerking on social media, okay? Do not fall for the bad, rotten bill of goods that they've been trying to sell women, okay? When you talk about feminism, that is automatically a turnoff for guys, okay? Because you have to understand that today's version of feminism is not what feminism actually was meant to be. So when you talk about being a feminist, which is something I did, and then I didn't understand until I took a step back and was like, huh, if you talk about feminism in the real truest sense, people aren't going to think of it that way, because they're only thinking about it in terms and the definitions that are used now, not the terms and the original definition of feminism the way when it was created and founded. Do not make that mistake, okay? And do not make the mistake of putting your hands on a guy and just taking for granted the fact that most men are told not to hit women. Like, don't start a fight you can't finish, okay? A lot of things today, women are running rampant, and they don't want to hear criticism from men. So it's up to women to hold other women accountable, and that includes you. If you are in a healthy and happy and respectful and fruitful and fulfilling relationship, be careful of who you're around then. Because a lot of times your girlfriends do not have that. And so they will indirectly sabotage that, and then you miss out on your beautiful, amazing, fulfilling relationship because you're indirectly sabotaging it based off of them sabotaging you. Okay? If you're in a relationship where you would rather be hanging out with your girlfriends instead of your man, that's probably... And also, another point I want to make is, if a guy has boundaries about, you know, he doesn't want you being around a whole bunch of dudes grinding at the club and all this and that and all kinds of other stuff, that's a boundary for him. That doesn't mean he's insecure. You've been told that so many times. That does not mean he's insecure. That means he knows men better than you do, because he himself is a man. Okay? And at the end of the day, who do you want to protect you? A simp or a masculine man that you have been taught to think is toxic? Okay, being a woman is an amazing thing. Being a guy is an amazing thing. You exist. You beat the odds of contraception. Like, you exist for a reason. don't squander that and take it for granted, okay? Things are never going to be 100% equal, because there are things that you can do that he cannot, and there are things that he can do that you cannot. And that's why what you guys bring to the table should mesh so well. If it doesn't, and you're at each other, there is a lot of stuff that you guys have to figure out, okay? A man does not ask for a ton from his woman. It's a lot of times you as the woman who asks so much of your man, but then you're not willing to reciprocate that and show that respect. It's how you talk, it's how you act, it's how you present yourself, it's who you choose to be around, okay? If I walk home alone in the middle of the night and I take a shortcut through the worst part of the neighborhood in my hometown, and I'm waving $10,000 above my head and I get robbed, well, I got robbed. That's terrible. That's bad. Whoever did that should be held accountable. However, I made the decision alone to make that shortcut through a known terrible area, waving $10,000 above my head. There's a certain amount of accountability that has to take place there, okay? You can't have it both ways. You can't have, you know, certain benefits without the responsibility, okay? Take accountability. Force the other women around you to take accountability. And if they don't want to, then maybe get rid of those women from your life, because they could end up sabotaging everything good in your life, okay? Nobody takes seriously this whole boss bee and the future is female and all this other stuff. Like, no, do not fall for that bill of goods. But at the same time, this does not mean that you are less than. I don't think men necessarily want you to feel like you are less than. They just want to be loved, feel appreciated and respected, and not come home to being berated and bossed around. They just want to come home to love, appreciation, respect. I think a lot of the same things that you also want: to feel loved, appreciated, respected, heard, protected, valued. You're being pounded with so much content to brainwash you into becoming what you yourself want to attract in somebody else. But it doesn't work. It doesn't work. And I think that there's so much that we can learn from men and from women sitting down and having polite discourse with each other, meaning sitting down and having a conversation of ideas honestly, articulately, calmly, rationally, logically, and getting some answers from both sides of the spectrum so that we can better our futures as a society. Because if we continue drinking the Kool-Aid, we're not going to get what we want out of life. And I think that we all deserve those basic fundamental happinesses that a lot of times we take for granted. And so many people fought for us to have these rights that we have, that we're squandering as people, and we're just accepting this poisoned Kool-Aid, so to speak. Okay, let me see here. Will I ever consider writing a children's pro wrestling story? No, I don't really think that there's a market for that. But I was considering a project in writing about wrestling, so I don't want to give too much away on that. Let me see here. Have I ever heard of Pro Wrestling Eve? They thought that I would fit in really well there. Absolutely. I really like Pro Wrestling Eve. I would love to do that, to be honest with you. That would be really cool. Someone asked me if I've ever heard of and or liked Jimi Hendrix. Yeah, that's where my name came from. Yeah, somebody gave me the name, this really cool referee from the East Coast shot the name on me after I had told him like the kind of vibe and character that I was going for at that time. I was like a more pop culture, Goonies, Never Say Die, One Girl Revolution version of Daisy Hayes, but my own sort of thing, not her thing, to be clear. And then one day he just came and announced me as Taeler Hendrix, and I wasn't even like fully prepared for it, but I kept it ever since then. So I always give him credit for that. That was not something that I picked out, and it worked out really, really well. Someone asked me if I've ever heard of this English play about a female wrestler. No, I had no idea. So definitely tell us more. Okay. What are some aspects of other companies that I would love to bring into a company of my own as far as professional wrestling? I would say the WWE TV deal, that is huge. Like if WWE was ever to lose that, it would be a big problem. for their sponsors and for them as a company, because that covers a majority of their expenses, as well as the fact that they're a publicly traded company. I would definitely eventually want to go public, and I would want their TV deal. I would want to secure a streaming rights, and I would want to secure a distribution system, a marketing team, which you can definitely see the marketing team at work when a person signs with WWE versus 1 year after they've been let go from WWE. Very big difference in their analytics and their engagements. I would also really want a good legal team, and I would want, you know, a really good contract written out that is super specific, that I think WWE does very, very well, that a lot of other companies should pay attention to. I would also want to keep a minimal roster, and I would also want to limit the types of extras coming in, because then it makes those extra spots more special. When you have everybody and their mom getting like certain extra gigs, it makes it less special, because if you have something that 100,000 other people have, is it really all that special? Or if you are 1 in 200, what's more special? You know what I mean? That's why I didn't really think it was like, I thought it was kind of odd that girls were so excited to be a part of the same PWI list as men. I'm like, what seems better? A list where you're 298th out of 500, or you're number 5 out of the top 100? What sounds better? You know, but I guess that's just me. I would also really want a core group that is completely firmly dedicated to my company, because then I know that I'm going to have a return on my investment in hiring them, instead of them wanting to jump ship or engage in behavior that ultimately harms my company long term, which is something that you see a lot with people that are in WWE doing things that are not PG friendly on their external social media platforms. There's a lot. That's actually a really in-depth question that I think we could spend its own video on. So let me know if you guys want more of that. Is there any opportunity that you took that you ultimately regret? Yes. Yes. But you guys are not ready for that answer. You're not. The answer is yes. But like I said earlier, I still wouldn't change it, because I'm really proud of who I am today. Another person asked me, are there any celebrities that are supportive of you? Yeah. Rose McGowan being one of them. Like, she heard me and saw me and supported me, and she saw me. She heard me when I was silent and I was hurting, and I am so 1,000%, like 1,000% grateful. There are other people too, but you know, I don't want to be like, oh, I'm friends with this person. But I will give out her name, because it was so unexpected, her support. And when everybody else in the industry that I made my name in just abandoned me and tried to make me out into something I wasn't, she stood by me. So that meant so much to me. So much to me. You guys have no idea. Have I ever felt pressured to have surgeries? I think we talked about this a little bit last week. Yeah. In wrestling, there was a lot of pressure around my time, and specifically, I don't think there's as much pressure in this newest generation, but definitely in mine, for sure. What are my thoughts on I'm not going to say what movement it actually was, but a movement in 2020 in wrestling. I thought it was fake. I thought it was fake. And I don't think people are really ready or expecting me to say that. But yeah, where were those same women in 2018? Where were they? They were all silent. All of them. All of them. What did the 2020 thing in wrestling actually do? Nothing changed. People were only jumping on the bandwagon because it was trending and popular, so they felt protected in doing so. It wasn't real. It wasn't authentic. Nothing changed. I think it just created a bigger divide in wrestling. And that's really unfortunate. You know, I've been in wrestling since I was a minor, and I love it. I love wrestling. I loved being a wrestler. I loved being in many different towns in 24 hours and meeting all kinds of people and performing around the world. And I loved it. I gave everything I had to it. I want to see it be better, for the better. But you know, when a certain minority or majority, you know, benefit both men and women from how it is, then it's not going to change until more people ultimately say enough is enough. And unfortunately, for that to happen, good men need to stand up, because men aren't going to care what women say. Men are going to care what their fellow men say. And women, it's the same way. And, you know, there's just, it was fake, it achieved nothing. There's so much I want to say, but it's just not worth it. You know, I spoke without needing, you know, a movement, I guess I would say. Did I really have a coffin cake for my 30th birthday? Yes, I did. It was awesome. It was a pumpkin, no, not pumpkin spice. It was a spice cake, coffin cake, and it said, Taylor, here lies your 20s. I did. I think I have a GIF of it. So I'll have to share that on my YouTube channel. Who are some women, if I had a company, that I would sign if they were unsigned? Santana Garrett, Vipress, Evilise, Mandy Rose, since she is no longer signed, Queen Aminata, gosh, there's so many. There's so many. I would need to like sit down and like recheck who's signed and not signed, because I could make a pretty epic division with girls that represent all kinds of different demographics to maximize the viewers that will come to my not just to my show, but also watch my show. And that would be so much fun for me. I would love that. Especially because like creating such a interesting, yeah, I would have so much fun with that. What are some horror stories from training as a wrestler? I saw somebody shatter their orbital bone on a bottom rope. We were practicing the, you know, the up and over flip in that Lisa Marie Varon does that lands in a leg drop. Well, we were practicing to try to do that. She was my favorite wrestler. So I always wanted to kind of have mannerisms similar to her, but my own gist of it. And so I wanted to try that out. And the person that was going before me to try it out, they held onto the ropes too long or something like that, and their face came up and hit underneath the bottom rope, and they shattered their orbital bone, like right around like here. Let me see. Another person was doing a Hurricane Rana, I believe, and the dude that was doing it, or taking it, I should say, let go. They didn't have ring awareness, basically, and they let go so close to the ropes that their feet hit the ropes like this, and it ricocheted, like they hit so hard that their feet bounced back up, and they kneed themselves in the face and broke their teeth. And then there was a girl that was training who was deaf, and she was training how to wrestle, and she wasn't comfortable doing a lot of things because she was still trying to get in shape. She was overweight for her height, and so she was trying really hard to not only get in shape but also learn how to wrestle while being deaf, because there was a certain amount lost in translation from signing, and because the person that was in charge of the training did not know sign language, and then the person that did know sign language was not a trained wrestler, so there was a lot lost in translation there, right? And she was struggling one of these particular days, and she was very honest about it. My sign language has gotten really, really bad. I was a lot better at it back then. And she was like so proud. She had lost like 30 pounds, and she was like, she was so cute. She was so short and cute. Like, she just, I don't know. She was just loving what she was doing. It was awesome. She was so great to be around. Like, to be honest, like I missed when she left. Like I missed her so much. She was so awesome and funny. Like, she was so funny. Like, she was like a little firecracker. Anyway, so we were practicing the mechanics of proper bumps, taking certain things, and one of them was a clothesline. And so she took a clothesline, and it was a very similar bump to the back elbow, and she took it, and she didn't kick her legs up, right? She kind of just went down. It was towards the end of practice. We were all tired. And because she didn't kick her feet out, she broke her ankle, and part of her ankle was like sticking out through her skin. And it was awful. She never came back to training and to wrestling. She never came back to anything after that. It was really, really sad because I wanted to see her succeed and stuff. She was just you know, like those people whose aura and their energy is just awesome to be around. Like, she was one of those people. Gosh, another training incident. Gosh, there's so many different training incidences, and then there's like actual show injuries. So if you guys want show injuries that I've been around, let me know. But yeah, there's a lot more training. What was it like working with the BC Lions? Yes, thank you for asking this. I think this will be our last question for this week. It was so cool. So in case you didn't know, all last year I was working as like an affiliate type sponsored role for the BC Lions. I am a big fan of the CFL. I love the BC Lions. I originally discovered the CFL while doing some research on an amazing person and actor by the name of John Candy. He used to own a CFL team, and that's how I kind of started learning about the CFL. And I just fell in love with the vibe of the BC Lions. It wasn't John Candy's team, but I just fell in love with it. And I just thought it was so cool, and the vibe and the tradition and the history, and it was just awesome, right? And so fast forward, I get to, you know, do these hype videos and stuff with the BC Lions. And it was awesome. There was a fan of mine who I guess was at the opening day for the CFL season opener for the BC Lions. And they saw my big Titantron video, and there was more than 30,000 people there in attendance. It was like a record attendance. I think it was like over like 36 or 37,000 people that day. And it was so cool. One Republic was performing, and then you just get this Taeler Hendrix video. And it was so awesome. You get some of my wrestling in there with some epic music and BC Lions footage from the CFL. It was just so cool. I think I did like three Titantron videos for them, and that was just so awesome. Since I didn't get to perform at Madison Square Garden, to me this was awesome because this drew more than the event at the Madison Square Garden. So it was just so cool. I love it. I love it. I cannot wait for this season.